Imagine yourself in London in 1962. Imagine yourself as a recording executive, and you just spent some time and auditions with a brand new band, and you've got to make a choice as to whether or not they join your stable of artists. Well, that recording company is Decca Records, and that band is the Beatles. And what you tell them, you say, fellas, no, sorry, we won't have you join us. Because we don't see a future in guitar-based bands, we don't see a future in guitar music. Wind the clock forward by about 40 years and the early 2000s. Another executive, another set of decisions to make about the future of the markets, future of products and so on. The computer science engineer at this time, Tony Fadell, had created this content delivery system to marry with the MP3 players that were quite popular at the time. His invention was looked over by Real Networks, remember them. And Real Networks passed it on, but Steve Jobs, he was that executive, and he saw what the future was, and he brought Tony Fadell in, and what they came up with this content delivery system was iTunes, and married it with the iPod, and the rest, they say, is history. So here we have two cases, two decisions, two opportunities, two sets of outcomes, two different perspectives on the future, two different ways of actually looking at the time ahead. So the question I'd like to answer is, how do you actually get the future right? How do you ensure long-term success? And so in order to help you shape your business for the future, I'd like to give you some insights into the future in ways that you can actually shape your business for the future. But first, a story. There was a philosophy professor, quite legendary for setting exams. And in these exams, it was, 50, 60%. But this particular year, the exam was around 60, 70%. Now, the students had covered, people like Plato and Aristotle. They looked at Kant and Hobbes and all these people. They looked at the themes and the ideas around nihilism and absurdism and existentialism and all these things. And so here they are in this final 3-hour exam that was worth around 60 to 70% of their final mark. And they file in and they sit down and they start their reading time. And a ripple of consternation spreads through the room as they look through their exam paper and they can only find one question. And so they've got 3 hours ahead of them to answer this one question. And that one question was, why? Well, the student who finished in 15 to 20 minutes, he actually was the top student. And his answer? Why not? And that's the phrase I'd like to put before you for over these next few moments is, why not? Why not? For isn't there so much change which is happening? And do you really think that business as usual thinking will give you your business as usual results in this era of so much change? It's interesting, there was a Greek philosopher, 500 BC, who observed that no man can step into the same river twice. In effect, what he was saying is that the only constant in life is change. And if that was true right back then, isn't it more so now? And doesn't it seem that change is accelerating? So, are you assured of business as usual outcomes with your business as usual thinking? And I put it to you, no. Why not? Why not consider? Why not move beyond this projected line of thinking? Why not move a little bit out to what is probable, a probable set of futures? Looking at trends, or perhaps even move a little bit further out to what could be plausible, of what is likely to happen, some things to consider, or even move out even further out to possible future, where this possible future is dependent on new knowledge and new answers to new problems and new inventions and things we don't know yet. Why not move the scope of your thinking out further? And this is interesting because change is so apparent in a lot of industries. In recent years, take say construction. The Chinese have constructed houses using 3D printing technology. Dubai recently constructed an office using 3D printing. Think about the body parts that are made, moving to the medical sphere. Think about the body parts which are actually made using 3D printing, and let's not forget manufacturing and the changes which are happening there with 3D printing. Let's look at another industry sector, retail. A few years ago, to do your online shopping, you needed to be in front of a desktop or a laptop computer. But now, using a little smartphone device, it's almost from our smartphone, wherever we are, we can order whatever we like, have it delivered wherever we want it to be delivered. Think about the large, perhaps global retail chains and the fashion houses that are actually opening up in new markets where they haven't been able to do that before. Other sectors, say education, where there is so much knowledge and so much information that are available now that's shifting what education means. And what about just the humble visit to the doctor? No longer is it just you and the doctor, but it seems like Dr. Google is there too, with the information that you have researched prior to that visit that you have with the doctor. But all of these things are at the surface. These are some of the things that we see. And what I'd like you to grasp hold of is this. Underlying what we see, there's these influences, there's these trends, there's these drivers of change. Areas such as demography with ageing and scientific convergence and individualism and environmentalism and so on. Take, for example, ageing and the trend that is happening there. Between now and 2030, 1.1 billion people will have their 60th birthday, considering that the global population is over 7 billion. It's 10% now of people are over 60. Over the next 20 to 30 years, that will double to be about 20% of people over 60. What will that do to the range of products and services that are bought and sold? What will that actually do to the experiences that people are needing? What will it do to the workforce that is available for in all sectors of the economy? Let's move to individualism and think through individualism, actually what's happening there. Now, anything that you want in a unique fashion can be delivered to you. You can experience that. Your uniqueness is no longer a barrier for customization. And also on another aspect, aren't we moving away from the collective to the more individual? Aren't we moving away from the collective way that things have been done to more unique and more individualised? Aren't we moving away? There was a Pew Research study that was done in recent times, and granted it's in the US, but it's indicative of broader trends, and they noted that there's this move away from the collective, the move away from the way things have been done. People are no longer so much engaged with religion or involved with political parties or seeing marriage as attractive. There's this shift to individualism. And what about environmentalism? Don't we see the breakdown in the the long-term decline in the structure of using fossil fuels for energy generation? And what about broad swathes of the population right across the globe which are demanding some action on climate change? And then there's scientific convergence. Yeah, hard sciences and soft sciences coming together, but just focusing on the hard sciences, thinking about genetics and nanotechnology and biotechnology and the convergence which is happening in these fields. Do you know now you can get, there's minute devices which can actually deliver drugs and deliver medicine to the actual cells that are required. So rather than bathing your whole body in medicine, right to the actual cell that is needed. There's miniature devices that can actually repair tissue and repair organs, no longer needing donations of organs, but send devices in, they can actually do the repair. But the one I want to focus on, the one influence, the one major driver of change, this one trend is information technology. Think about what's happened in recent years. 2002 we had this BlackBerry device that you could actually get email on it. And then in 2007 there was the iPhone with the ability to manipulate the screen. 2G when it came out, that wireless technology for our smartphones. When it first came out, 2G, 9.6 kilobits per second, 1,000 bits per second. We're in 2020 with 5G, they're actually looking at 1 terabit per second. It's quite a lot of change. What about with cloud computing? 90% of businesses now have some form of cloud computing. Back in 2012, less than 5 years ago, that figure was 30%. It's grown from 30 to 90% in just a few short years. But what is it about information technology that it has this pervasive influence? Why does information technology have more influence over almost every aspect of our life, in comparison with ageing or environmentalism? Well, I'll put it to you this way. Don't we live in a knowledge-based economy? Don't we live in a services-based economy? And isn't information and the flow of information so vital in knowledge and in service industries? It really is about the creation and the use and the flow of information. Let me put it this way. Think of your suppliers, your buyers, your competitive market. Think of your buyers. Don't you use some form of digital platform to engage with buyers and prospective buyers? Some sort of social media. Don't they transact with you using electronic means, using IT? And what about your suppliers? Don't you, isn't there some form of integration between you and your suppliers using software? And what about the competitive environment that you operate in? For example, Google AdWords, you can actually look up and actually find and actually see what the value is of the words and the keywords what people are fighting over to use, if you will, for selling and advertising their products and their services. But that's external to the business. What about internal? What about your operations? What are the impacts of information technology on the operations of your business? Well, there was a recent research report by Frey and Osborne out of the UK, and they looked at all of the jobs that are available, and they came to this conclusion that between now and 2030, 40% of jobs are at risk of obsolescence due to technology. Due to automation, computers, robotics, artificial intelligence. And so there's all this change which is happening that we can see. There's these drivers of change, these major influential trends which are actually causing change. So how do you shape your business in the light of all of this? Well, I put it to you, it's through the power of the pause. What happens when you pause? What happens when you stop? What happens when you give yourself time to catch your breath, if you will? You know, you move past the distractions of now and move into a mode where you can begin to think about what happens next. You know, pause right now, take a breath. You know, that time of stop, that time of giving yourself time to consider and to reflect and to look. And this is the point I'd like to put before you, is this: the power of the pause is used in this context. For this chart, through this graph, you can actually see three curves. There's the red curve, the blue and the green. The red curve is the now curve, how we do things now. The political system, the social, the technological environment, the environment, the legal environment. That's the way things are right now. And then off into the future is the blue curve, how the way things will be ahead of time. And then finally into the green curve, where things will be in the years ahead. But what I'd like to point out to you is this: the way things are right now will die away. And the thing to notice is this, is that what will be that blue curve, that green curve, the seeds of tomorrow are with us today. And it's through the power of the pause that it gives us time to actually look for those seeds, to actually look for those things which will become the new way of doing things tomorrow. So how do you watch? How do you use that pause? How do you actually use that space? What you do is you look and watch, you observe, you actually look and see what's happening on, what people are writing about on blogs, what are they putting on YouTube videos. What's some research which is coming out of universities? What are some of the new inventions that people are getting behind? What are perhaps people, you know, new bands and new artists? What are that new movies? What are they actually talking about that's not readily acceptable today, or is not part of mainstream society today? For in all these areas, that's where the seeds of tomorrow are, and it's through the power of the pause that will give you that opportunity to actually see what those seeds are. So how do you shape your business for the future? How do you prepare for the future? How do you ensure long-term success? Well, it's through the power of the pause. I'll leave you with this thought. Albert Einstein, he said this: he who no longer pauses to stop and wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Albert was saying that he who just doesn't look around, he who doesn't observe, he who doesn't take the time to stop, to pause, to consider what is happening, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. There's no real future. So how do you shape your business for the future? It's through the power of the pause.